Okay, everybody, good morning. It's 9 o'clock. We have a lot of people logging in. We had a record number of RSVPs, it was over 126. So this sort of confirms our excitement about our topic today. So I'm glad you all could join us. We're going to go ahead and get started. We'll see people logging in during the presentation, but we have a lot of content to cover today, so I'm excited that, again, you could join us. Just some housekeeping. We have you on mute only. We certainly encourage you to connect with us. We have a chat feature. Caitlin's online with me, so we'll be responding to any text messages as they come in. We do have a Q&A coming on. We also are recording this, so this will be available. We'll be sending out like a survey, and we really encourage your follow-up and give us any kind of feedback and any follow-up opportunities for you. But we'll also have a link to the video if you'd like to share it with any of your contacts or fellow realtors or homeowners that are interested in this. So let's see. So let me introduce myself. My name is Will Johnson. I have a home inspection business I started in 2005. And in 2008, I signed up as a HUD 203K consultant. I manage 24 to 30 of these loans every year, so I'm very, very active with managing renovation loans. I go into field inspection, review bids, and then as the loan is funded, I manage fund control, release of the funds throughout the process. And then I've invited Caitlin Bigelow to join me again. We had a webinar back in September 2018. She's a very, very valuable, highly regarded resource here in San Diego. I came across her early in 2018, where she is notable for driving the local San Diego City Council in terms of reducing some of the impact fees, which really results in thousands of dollars of savings for granny flats. Caitlin, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Will, for having me on. I'm excited to chat with everyone about kind of the ins and outs of accessory dwelling units, and I know that there's a ton of interest, but it can feel a little complicated and confusing, and so that's part of what we're going to try to demystify for you guys today. Great,
thanks. Welcome, Caitlin. So let's go over the agenda. I'll be talking a little bit about what got us here with the new provisionings with accessory dwelling units. There's two major drivers that I really want to impart with you today is really the impact of the regulations for ADUs, and the second one's going to be in financing. We're going to be able to do some financing that wasn't previously available in past years. So I think the combination of this is really going to compel the marketplace going forward. We'll talk about what's really driving the demand in the marketplace, go over some of the financing options. We'll drill into renovation loans since that's my area of expertise. And then Caitlin's going to sort of take it over and really talk about trends, ROI, ADUs. You know, Caitlin is really a one-stop shop for anybody that's looking at ADUs. She has a whole network of professionals that are going to be available to her. So this is really, she's going to be an excellent resource for you as you really start to explore seriously getting into accessory dwelling units. And in that regard, Caitlin is actually sponsoring and driving an event on February 23rd morning, University of San Diego, where she'll actually have a lot of those experts available for you to speak with and work one-on-one. We're confident that we'll probably raise your level of interest at the result of this presentation, and this would be an excellent next step to really sort of get in front of the experts and help get your questions answered and help you start initiating any types of projects coming forward. Caitlin will be talking about this as we go along in the presentation. Okay, so let's talk about the new provisionings with accessory dwelling units. I was following this as soon as it was approved in 2016. The state of California had recognized that we just have a housing crisis shortage, and they really sort of see relaxing some of the ADU requirements throughout the state to help really provide inventory in the marketplace. One of the problems with accessory dwelling units is when you won't go to provision the accessory dwelling unit, it's treated as new construction. You might as well be building a brand new standalone dwelling like you are, but what came along with that is all of the costs were associated with it. So it became somewhat prohibitive from a cost standpoint, from impact fees and permit fees. We also ran into areas of having to provide off-street parking. So these are all big roadblocks, and the state recognized that. So beginning of 2017, they really sort of revised and mandated mandatory ordinances to relax some of these provisions. 2018, they amended it to include what's called junior accessory dwelling units. So that's when you reproportion some of your existing conditioned space as an individual dwelling. So let's just look at some of the mandatory requirements that are statewide. This is going to be applicable to any local jurisdiction throughout California. So one of the relaxing conditions was off-street parking. This is basically was a big objection in terms of surveying the property and having to provide off-street parking for it. They eliminate that if it can be serviced by public transportation within a half a mile. So if there's a public transit stop with a half a mile, that off-street parking requirement goes away. In addition, there's other provisions for it, allowing tandem parking, but that actually turned into a big roadblock as people started to look at ADUs. Oops, I got ahead of myself here.
And I'll just chime in one little thing, Will, on the off-street parking that people get confused. So like Will said, you're not required to provide new parking spaces if you're within a half mile of public transit. But if you were to convert a garage, for example, which is a very popular thing to do, you do have to replace the parking that existed on the property previously. So if you replace a 2-car garage and convert that into a granny flat, you have to provide 2 parking spaces then on the property. The good news about that is that your existing parking could meet the requirement. So if you had a longer driveway, parking spaces can be counted tandem in a driveway. And so that's something else to kind of think about.
Thanks. You know, that's an important comment is, you know, between September and January, Caitlin has had a ton of experience where we're really getting into minutia on some of these requirements that we're being able to do transactions. I have several projects that people are applying for renovation loans that are actually in construction right now. I have one in process, and we're really getting some real good experience here. And that's really what's going to make the difference in terms of working with Caitlin and myself in terms of helping you map out your ADU strategies. Going forward here, fire sprinkler systems did not become mandatory. Anytime you're building new construction, a new dwelling, that was an automatic requirement. That's actually been optional if the primary dwelling didn't have sprinkler systems associated with it. Utility services. So again, going back to new construction, they wanted you to bring in all new connections for your electrical and water and gas. They now made this an option where if the existing dwelling has that capacity, that you can feed off of the existing dwelling system. And then impact fees. So there's a lot of taxes and permit fees associated with new constructions that can be extremely costly associated with it. That's all being reviewed and reproportioned out there to really make it proportional to the accessory dwelling units. So in summary, if you look at a lot of these provisions, we're saving and reducing costs by tens of thousands of dollars as a result of these new ordinances. So some of the things that is still controlled by the local ordinances are things like owner occupancy requirements, short-term rentals, setbacks, other restrictions like they can reduce some of the square footage capacity. Here's just sort of a snapshot of all of the building departments. Some of them have gone through with their own ordinances. Some of them are defaulting to the state ordinance. And again, this is where somebody like Caitlin could be very instrumental in helping you sort of navigate through this process. We also have some breaking news. Caitlin, you can probably share with us what just happened recently with the San Diego County.
Yeah, so San Diego County recently put in place a fee waiver for development and impact fees for the next 5 years, and they funded that with an $11 million initiative. And so essentially what that means for people who live in San Diego County who are interested in building an accessory dwelling unit is you're going to save probably an average of anywhere from $11,000 to $20,000 on your permit. So it's a big deal, and the city council really did that as a push to, jumpstart building and try to make this more affordable for homeowners.
Great. This is pretty exciting opportunities here in San Diego County, where I think we were a little slow to respond to the ADU ordinances, but we're really catching up. And so we really see this as a huge enabler for people to really seriously start looking at building accessory dwelling units. I'll also share sort of a lot of things going on in the background. There's been a lot of discussions of building departments creating master plans. And so we'll have some predefined plans that will be available. This is still very early on in the process for it. But once these two come in place, some of the big enablers is you'll be able to go to the building department and get these kinds of pre-approved plans approved over the counter. Anybody that knows construction, that process can sometimes take months. So it's just a lot of things that we're all tracking, staying on top of, and again, we just see these as huge enablers in the marketplace. So certainly stay tuned. So let's just talk briefly about what's really sort of driving the market. And I know Caitlin's shared with us on some past presentations, and I've seen the same thing. What I've seen is probably the number one initiative driving the demand for ADU units is actually taking care of families. People taking care of multi-generational family needs out there. One project that I'm directly involved with, the buyer, this is a home refinance, adding an accessory dwelling unit. And the main driver is her parents are actually still renting. Think about that for a second. You have parents that are still renting. They're going to have some problems as they, moving into retirement strategies. So this is a huge, huge enabler. I've worked with other families that have impairments that, they need to be these permanent caregivers. This is an opportunity for them to sort of enable this. It's been frustrating for people that are trying to bring families together to buy property because they're usually competing with the investor community. So think about this opportunity where savvy realtors could really start to realize I can create that multi-generational family opportunity. The second one is just the income opportunity, and you'll see we'll go through some very general high-level opportunities in there, but this really should drive the investment community out there because it's just penciling out. It's very, very attractive. Let's just talk briefly about some of the financing opportunities. I'm not a loan officer. I'm not associated with the lending company. I just work in conjunction with these renovation loans. We have a whole network of lenders and loan officers that help you can go through some kind of analysis to help you understand what's the best financing available to you. The first one, cash out refinancing. Candidly, if you have equity in the property, you could refinance. I've always had a lot of pushback because, we have people with very low interest rates out there, and it just doesn't make sense for them to give up that low interest rate compared to current interest rates today. What does seem to be very attractive is a home equity line of credit where they can create a second loan at more current interest rates, but still preserving that loan amount at that low interest rate. And then we have renovation loans based on future value. It allows a larger construction budget. So we'll talk a little bit more of that in more details. And then we also have construction loans that is available. And again, this is something you'll have to work with a loan officer to sort of walk you through the best financing option that's available to you. So let's just talk a little bit about renovation loans. Again, I've been doing this since 2008. Renovation loans are available for purchase and refinance. So that the HUD program is called the 203K. Fannie is home style. I really enjoyed the program because it's very, very flexible. As you can see, it sort of allows you to work with just about every type of dwelling. It also allows you to do most types of fixed improvements that are available. What I think a lot of homeowners and home buyers don't understand, and this is where we sort of go back to some of those other loans. You have an equity loan, you can go and do a HELOC on this, and you'll be able to pull out the perceived equity in the property. What you're going to discover here is sometimes that might be insufficient for a budget for an ADU. I sort of work within a range of about $80,000 to $160,000 and above. For those of you that don't have that kind of equity that can do HELOC, this is really where the renovation loan really starts to make sense because it's based off of the future improvements. And I'll tell you flat out, anytime we're adding square footage, the loan again is based on the future value. Anytime we're adding square footage, will give us a much larger construction budget to work with. So this has really been a powerful opportunity in the marketplace. One of the announcements that I was getting to earlier is one of the distinctions about the Fannie Mae product is it's actually available for investors. For those of you that work with the investor communities, this is absolutely a great opportunity to utilize these renovation loans for any kinds of investment opportunities in the marketplace. Fannie Mae last year really looked at the marketplace and they came to some conclusions that people are just not turning over inventory like they have been historically. People want to age in place. People just don't want to move for a lot of reasons. So they really looked at what can we do to tweak our renovation loan to make it more attractive. They used to have a cap where the construction budget couldn't be higher than 50% of the overall value of the property. They increased that to 75%. But the really big one here is, we can do income properties with these loans, and I'll show you some examples of that. For the first time, they'll allow us to do standalone detached ADUs. Previously, any income properties that I had participated in, they had to physically attach. They had to share a condition wall in order to satisfy that requirement from HUD or Fannie Mae. So this is really good news, is that the fact that we have a loan that can allow you to do a 2-on-1 detached ADU, but frankly, I think this is what the market is really looking for. So let's just talk about the financial opportunity. We can see from Truly Owned, the average value on conditioned property in San Diego, this is of last year, was $444. One of the things I want to share with you, I'm managing construction projects on a weekly basis, meeting with contractors. I always ask them, a question is, what's the starting cost that we're looking at when we're adding new construction? You already own the property, so what are the build costs? And most of those discussions, believe it or not, start out as low as $200. I sort of discount that $200 a square foot, but just look at that delta of your build costs versus your value, and just see that there's an opportunity there where we can really create some attractive equity. So that's, I think, a real eye-opener for those of you that are working with the investment community out there. If we can build that equity, just imagine what that's going to do to your cap rates. That's going to really make an investment purchase that much more attractive just by adding an accessory dwelling unit associated with that. If we sort of contrast and see, where is the rental market today? And these numbers look a little high to me from what I'm used to seeing out there. But again, we could be off by a significant margin, and the opportunity is still there in the marketplace. So if we sort of look at using a renovation loan, and let's do a garage conversion. Again, we're just using a rough cost of $80,000. If I finance that with a renovation loan, that adds something under $500 a month to my mortgage payment. And turn around and compare that to what we can rent for, we're going to create some very attractive cash flow. So not only are we creating equity here, we're going to create some very attractive cash flow that's really going to attract the investment community. I think this will be, when we do our due diligence and we work with investors and start going through some of these exercises, I think this will be a very easy decision for an investor to make, to realize, okay, what's the next step? Let's move the ball forward. Just think of how you are going to be perceived in the marketplace, creating these kinds of opportunities for the investment community that's just not really apparent to them. When we talk about affordable housing, taking care of family, let's sort of go through the same exercise again. And, you're going to put your parents in an accessory dwelling unit in the back and see, again, this is going to have a construction cost of $80,000. Again, if we use a renovation loan, the net impact is $455, under $500 a month. Again, if you compare that with what they would be faced with if they're trying to buy or rent a one-bedroom unit, how attractive that is, and how much impact they'll be able to save for their retirement dollars as associated. So this is a great opportunity to create affordable housing. I think we may have heard recently, our mayor, Falconer, going blank here, he just talked about our housing crisis out there, and just seems like our housing shortage, our housing issues is almost daily news in the marketplace. And I think this is very empowering to think that you have an opportunity of enabling that and participating. So I just wanted to show some income properties that I've done in the past year, and just sort of help you really sort of see visually that this is actually happening. Craftsman style, we added a 3-unit box in the back of the property that really created a very attractive income flow here in the North Park area.
Will, is it possible to mute? We have a ton of people logging on. I think we have over 90 people joining us, but I think every time someone comes on, there's a little beep. If maybe there's a way to turn that off, that might be helpful. And while Will's looking into that, a couple of questions came in. I'll just answer one while he's looking into the settings on that. So someone asked, is the half a mile from public transit as the crow flies or walking block? And so the city has what's called a high transit priority area. And so if you there's an article on Maxible's site that has a map of that high transit priority area, but you can actually look up in San Diego if you're in that priority area. And San Diego has mapped that that's a half a mile from the public transit. So if you're within that map zone, you're good to go. So I'm not sure if it's exactly as the crow flies. I would assume it is. And someone else is saying that their sound just went out. You guys can put looks like sound just dropped, Will.
Let's see.
Can anyone else, there's a chat box. If you guys hover over your screen at the top, the little green. Oh yeah, multiple people are saying we have no sound. Oh, someone else is saying here is fine. Okay, well maybe people can hear. Sorry about the technical difficulties on this, everyone. Oh, right there, Will, no, right where you were, I saw it says play a sound when people enter and leave. Can you bring that screen back up?
Yeah, well, that's what I flagged earlier. Oops.
So we would want that unchecked because we don't want to hear when people come and go. When someone joins or leaves, yeah, we don't want to. Perfect. Okay, I think that should fix it, everyone. So sorry to interrupt, Will, if you want to continue there.
Okay, so here's a property in Imperial Beach. Let me go back to that slide here. So this is, believe it or not, a duplex. One of the units was completely demolished. So they built a 3-bedroom, 2-bath roof deck. This is 2 blocks from the beach. This person is a young person in the military, and I just think he's very excited about the opportunity he's created. And here's my last one. This is a property in the Claremont area. This is a cute little bungalow. This is actually a contractor, but he had a baby on the way, so he built this back unit. Again, this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath unit in 2016. So, Caitlin, we're going to go ahead and pass this presenter over to you. Wow. Oh, there you are.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am really excited to go over some of this with you. Oops, this is not my first slide. Here we go. So like I said, my name is Caitlin Bigelow. I founded Maxable Space as a way to connect property owners to the information that they need to build accessory dwelling units. And now is a really awesome time to be exploring this, in part because of some of the recent fee waivers and legislation that's taken place. So I'm going to kind of give you guys an opportunity for that. Will, can you provide in the chat the call-in number for this? It looks like some people are still not having sound. So they can maybe call into the event as well. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving. So there's kind of a perfect market for this right now. And like I said, that has to do with favorable legislation that's taking place with the Senate Bill 1069 and then some of the amendment bills that have come through. There's been a big fee reduction. So San Diego and San Diego County have both waived development and impact fees. And there's a hot housing market. And so when you have this kind of like perfect equation of things, people are thinking about, well, what can I do to my property? How can I maximize my property? Are there opportunities that I'm missing? So that's a really great thing to think about when you're looking and exploring an accessory dwelling unit. So here's some of the statistics I just wanted to touch on that shows kind of what an amazing opportunity this is. So San Diego's rental vacancy rate now is 3.3%. And it's estimated that to have a healthy rental vacancy rate, that a city should be at closer to 7%. So essentially what that's telling us is that we have a supply and demand issue. We do not have enough rentals, enough housing for people in San Diego. It's jacking up the prices of rents. And it's estimated that the San Diego's population is going to increase by 1 million people by 2050. So that is really a crazy thing. So, you know, and this is really the ethos behind why all this legislation has happened, is that the city sees that there's a huge need and the state sees that there's a huge need. And so they're trying to fill that by basically allowing homeowners to kind of capitalize on low-hanging fruit, which they see as accessory dwelling units in the backyard. Okay, for those of you, I guess you wouldn't be able to necessarily hear, but if you're having sound issues, there is a conference call in, and so Will provided the conference number, and the conference code is in there as well. So you guys can go ahead and call. I apologize for the technical difficulties here. So again, San Diego's average rent has gone up almost to $1,900, breaking a record. And it's like, you can see the trends here. This was in the Union Tribune back in, I believe, May. And so when you're looking at this graph and you see where our rental vacancy rate is, and you see, you know, that we're projected to have all these new people moving to San Diego, to me, it's kind of like a no-brainer. Like, how could rents decrease if we're not increasing the supply of housing? So Will kind of talked about this already. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I did want to mention this. This is something that people get kind of confused about, and so it's, I think, important, especially as real estate agents, to kind of understand this distinction. So essentially what happened is that Senate Bill 1069 wiped out all the local ordinances that stipulated what you could do around accessory dwelling units. So La Mesa, Chula Vista, Del Mar, Coronado, everyone had their own local ordinance around an accessory dwelling unit. And essentially what the state did is they said, you know what, we're wiping out all of your local ordinances. We're replacing them with a common sense state standard, but you can still pass another ordinance, but you only get to control certain variables. So you can control things like minimum maximum build size, owner occupancy, short-term rentals like Airbnb, you know, lot size, that kind of thing. But you can't overwrite the ethos of this law, and you can't make it so prohibitive that people can't do this. So I just wanted to look at the San Diego jurisdictions. So here are, you know, there are certain jurisdictions that have minimal rental periods. So, for example, if you live in, you know, Del Mar, Chula Vista, Coronado, anything in this list, you cannot rent your accessory dwelling unit for less than 30 days at a time. There's also owner occupancy requirements in certain jurisdictions, which I really dislike. I think it's kind of ridiculous that they would mandate something like this, especially because if you own a duplex or you own an apartment building or something like that, there's no requirement that you live on the property. But these jurisdictions mandate that the owner either has to live in the main primary house or in the accessory dwelling unit.
Hey, Caitlin, I hear the big exception is City of San Diego.
City of San Diego is not on that list. So City of San Diego does not require owner occupancy.
Yeah, so think about that. Again, if we're talking to investment communities, we can go into the City of San Diego. That owner occupancy requirement's not there. So that's where we're beginning to direct projects to when we're talking to investors out there, that requirement doesn't stand out there. And I also understand they are really lax on some of the setback requirements.
Yeah, we can go over that. Essentially, if you're building under 500 square feet in San Diego and less than 30 feet in length, you can build all the way to the property line. The walls have to be fire rated and whatnot, but it does buy you extra space in the backyard, especially if it's a tight, you know, if it's a small backyard. Like I had a homeowner, we finished our first client build around 3 months ago, and she had a small backyard in North Park, and we still managed to fit a 435 square foot unit back there, but it wouldn't have worked really if she wasn't able to build all the way to the property line. So that is, San Diego is one of the, if you're looking at this from an investment standpoint, San Diego is probably one of the best jurisdictions to be building an accessory dwelling unit in. So here are the places that don't have a local ordinance. So in general, these jurisdictions tend to be a little bit more difficult to get an ADU passed in. San Diego County, again, just took some pretty big steps to make this cheaper for people. So that kind of signals to me that they're more serious about doing a better job about getting these ADU permits out the door a bit faster than they have been. So that's a big deal. And again, that's only in place for 5 years. So for those of you just joining us, the big breaking news was that San Diego County last week just waived development and impact fees for accessory dwelling units for the next 5 years. And they funded that with an $11 million program. And that's going to save homeowners between $10,000 to $20,000 on development impact fees. So that's a big deal. There are some jurisdictions where you cannot build all the 1,200 square feet. So by the state regulations, if it's a detached accessory dwelling unit, detached being the key word because people get this confused a lot. If it's a detached accessory dwelling unit, you can build up to 1,200 square feet regardless of what the size of the primary house is. So if you have a small, an old small house that's maybe 700 or 800 square feet, can you build a 1,200 square foot unit in the backyard? Yes, you can, unless you're in one of these jurisdictions, in which case there's prohibitive size restrictions. So I just kind of wanted to give you guys an idea. Will shared some construction numbers with you. I think, Will, those numbers might be a bit low from what I'm seeing, but they're in the ballpark range. So this garage conversion I really love because it doesn't look like much of anything. It's not like you would even glance twice at it if you were walking through an alley. And you can see the transition that it went through. Now it's a beautiful 1-bedroom with bathroom. Here's another accessory dwelling unit. This is an 1,100 square foot unit, and it's actually in Austin, Texas. And the kind of crazy thing about Austin is you can actually subdivide the lot and sell the accessory dwelling unit. So that's not an opportunity that's available to Californians. The state law actually strictly prohibits that kind of thing, but in Austin, that's a totally different beast. So here's a beautiful 2-story accessory dwelling unit, which in San Diego you can do 2-story. It's got really modern, beautiful interior, and so I just really love the design on this one. So one of the things I talk to people about is like, what should you look for? Like if you are thinking, oh, I think this could be a good opportunity, I'm interested in doing this, like what kind of characteristics should I be looking for? So you absolutely want to be zoned single family. If you're multifamily, it's either extraordinarily difficult or impossible. You want to look for a detached 2-car garage. That's kind of low-hanging fruit and the easiest and most efficient way to turn something into a second rentable unit. Backyard that offers privacy is really nice. So like the deeper lots, so that you can have separation from the main house and the accessory dwelling unit. Alley access is a big, big win. If you have alley access, then you can build the accessory dwelling unit on the back half of the property, and there can be complete separation from the renters in the front and the renters in the back, or the homeowners and the renters, or family or whatnot. So here's another before. You can see just kind of an average. I mean, this just looks like a SoCal garage. It's not being super utilized. And now it's renting for $1,800 a month. And the homeowners told me that they felt like they could have gotten $2,000 a month for it, but that they really wanted to rent to someone that they liked a lot, and that was important to them since they were living on the property. So what they did here, and they spent about $110,000 on this garage conversion, but they didn't just expand it on the footprint, and they vaulted ceilings just to give it a bigger feel and make it, seem more open and whatnot. And this is an IKEA kitchen that they put in, and now they have like a wonderful 560 square foot apartment in the back of their property. And the homeowner was telling me that he's so thrilled with how this went that he's already looking for his next property with accessory dwelling unit potential. So here's another house. It came on the market in South Park, and I wanted to show you guys why this would be such a great house for adding an accessory dwelling unit. So here's the Google, when people send me their properties and they want me to look into like, oh, would this be a good property and whatnot, the first thing I do is I go into Google and I look at the aerial view of the property. So what I can see is, we've got this deep yard. There's a garage in the back, so that could be converted or we could add on that. And then there's alley access, so you can actually see cars parking in the back there, which is really fantastic. And so this kind of a property, and then there's this yard, so you can have, some amount of backyard still for both houses. Like this would be a great candidate for an accessory dwelling unit. So let's talk a little bit about what does an ADU cost. And so it's easy to go and see, well, what is the average cost per construction for a house in San Diego, right? And you might come up with like a 200-something figure. But the thing is that accessory dwelling units are a little bit tricky to calculate cost per square foot. And I'll give this analogy. So I love to go to Costco and buy the bulk toilet paper. And there are no bulk discounts when you're building a granny flat. So you're going to pay a premium for it because it's such a small space and it has all the same costs associated with it that a large house does, but without the offset cheap square footage, right? So if you're building a 2,500 square foot house, you have maybe 3 or 4 bedrooms, and bedrooms, hallways, living rooms, closets, that's all cheap square footage. Expensive square footage is your kitchen and your bathroom. So if you have a 500 square foot unit and you're still having to pour a foundation and then put a bathroom and a kitchen in 500 square feet, it's almost all expensive square footage. So that's why the cost per square foot numbers can be deceiving. It's not linear. So the smaller your unit is, the higher your cost per square foot will be. And the bigger your unit is, the more your cost per square foot will go down. So generally, I'm seeing things in the $250 to $300 a square foot range. And, the $300 a square foot is going to be more for the tiny units. If you're looking at something that's less than 600 square feet, just as a general ballpark. And again, these numbers can differ depending on the site conditions and how much grading needs to be done and whatnot. But that'll kind of at least give you an idea of what things are going to cost. So other costs beyond your construction costs, you have your permits, your permitting cost, your design fee. And, this is kind of what I just talked about, is that you don't really have a lot of inexpensive square footage for an accessory dwelling unit. One way to make the unit, I think, a lot more attractive to a renter, or even if you have family living there and it doesn't cost a lot, is to have some kind of outdoor space. So, in San Diego, if you have an outdoor table, it's like having a second dining room. So that is a way that you can add a lot of value to a rental or for someone's home that maybe wouldn't cost you the same as, for example, adding an extra 50 square feet to the property. Here's a case study that I wanted to share with you. An appraiser had put this together, and he was basically showing the added value of having an accessory dwelling unit on the property. And you can see at the bottom, he says that income loss without the ADU would have been close to $300,000, which is really, really wild to me. So kind of going back to what Will touched on is, if the average value of square footage in a place like North Park, for example, is $540 a square foot, and you're building for 200 square foot, then you're adding instant equity to the property, and you have the ability to generate additional income. And so if you think about this from the perspective of what it would cost to buy a property in San Diego, to be able to then turn around and use that as a rental property, your costs are going to be so much higher because you're also paying for the land. in this scenario, you already own the land, and then you're further maximizing that property. So it just makes so much financial sense. And here's one figure that really is shocking to people. A garage conversion, a $100,000 garage conversion over a 30-year period brings a $1.5 million return on investment. And that's assuming that it's being rented out at market rate. So if, you would be hard pressed to find an investment that could bring in that kind of a return. So I'm gonna shamelessly plug something for a minute here. So we are hosting our first ever Granny Flats 101 event, February 23rd. It's gonna be a 4-hour event. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers, including the Deputy Director of City Planning for San Diego. Some of my favorite architects and general contractors will be there. Will and I will both be there. And one of the things I'm most excited about beyond just having this fantastic panel of experts that we're going to be talking through all of the intricacies of building an accessory dwelling unit is that you're going to have the opportunity to get one-on-one advice. So we're going to have a separate room beyond the main speaking room where you can actually book appointments with architects, general contractors, appraisers, lenders, and other experts in the field, and you can get questions answered for your specific property. You can book as many appointments with different people as you want within that 4-hour time frame. And so the idea behind the event was that I wanted to pull together all of the professionals that you would need to talk to be able to make an informed decision about a project, or just to get the information you would need so that you would be able to advise clients. So this is going to be a really awesome event. We've sold about 130 tickets. I think we have about 30 tickets left. So we're almost sold out, and we're still more than a month out. So definitely don't wait. And I'm just really, really excited about this. I can't wait for the February 23rd. So I will, if you scroll up to the top of the comments, there's an Eventbrite link. Let's see, I'll just copy and paste it at the bottom. So anyone interested in tickets can buy them by following that link. Okay. And then as another thank you guys for joining, I'm also going to send you some free tools. So you can be on the lookout for, I'll send you a Granny Flat lookbook that just kind of gives you ideas. I have a Design 101 for designing small spaces, things that you should consider, as well as a cost estimator cheat sheet. So those will all be tools to kind of get you guys started. And if you have any questions or, things pop up, I'm always a resource. And one thing I'll mention before I turn it back over to Will is that, so we offer free phone consultations. So if a property owner has questions about their property, we're happy to spend 10 minutes on the phone with you for free. And we also offer paid site consultations. So on the paid site consultation, we charge $200. We do research on the property ahead of time, and then we come out and spend about an hour with you on the property. We can go over things like tax implications of building this, what the permit fee and schedule is going to look like, what the setbacks are specific to your property, how to maximize ROI for this property, design ideas, like any number of things, cost estimates, that kind of stuff. So it's like anything you would need to get started on a project, we can help you with. So anyway, thank you guys so much, and I'm going to turn it back over to Will.
Great, thanks. A lot of great information there. So just to follow up on a couple of the presentations that Caitlin just went over, we're going to send out an email survey with just a couple of basic questions, but we'll have a link to Caitlin's event on February 23rd to register through Eventbrite, and then I'll also include a link to the webinar event. So that will be available. So let me make sure I have, make sure I unmute Caitlin. Okay. Okay, Caitlin, you should be back on.
I'm here.
Awesome. Okay. So I don't see any pending questions right now.
Oh, wait. Well, there's a bunch of questions.
Oh.
Okay, so let's jump into some of the Q&A. So let's see, and if anyone has questions, feel free to type them in. So someone said, how can we confirm the feasibility of a lot before purchasing the property? So that's something that I can help you with. I do this with real estate agents all the time, is we can schedule, I'm happy to just offer a free consultation if you just need like a quick question. But I think for something like this, if you're on the lookout for a property with ADU potential, and you want to make sure that before you purchase the property, you know what you're getting in for, I would recommend booking a consultation with us where, it's $200. It gives you the peace of mind to know that the property that you're buying, it's zoned correctly. You know what the costs are going to be ahead of time. There's no curveballs. You know that the setback requirements are going to fit with the backyard and that your floor area ratio is below the level you need to be. Like, there's all these kind of little intricacies and like formulas that we need to run to make sure that it's a viable property. So if you're, wanting to know about feasibility, I would recommend reaching out to us. We have a free contact form on our website. Someone asked if you could show the costs again, Will. If you could go to your slide that has costing. So again, I think that these numbers might be slightly low. Generally, I tell people that for a 500 square foot accessory dwelling unit, you're probably looking at $150,000, and that would be all in. So including your construction costs, your permit costs, and your design fees. But I think it would be pretty difficult to get a 500 square foot unit in for less than that.
Yeah, so I basically am going to, like I said earlier, I'm going to include a link to the webinar event so you can go back and review it. And again, if you guys have any specific questions, again, the survey, phone numbers, that'll all be available for any kind of a follow-up call for you.
And then, Will, we've got a question. Someone said, it's my understanding that the interest on HELOC loans are no longer tax deductible.
Oh, I couldn't touch that. That'll be a lender question. So, well, I have a network of lenders that are willing, ready, able to help address any kinds of financing opportunities for you. So we can put you in contact. And, I think that's the big distinction here. As you can see, Caitlin is bringing a wealth of experience, and this is a big differentiator in the marketplace. We can certainly help you, move the ball forward in terms of any types of potential ADU needs that you have.
And then I think the last question I see here is, how do you estimate an over garage granny flat build out? So building up is always more expensive than building out. So building a standalone unit in the backyard is going to be cheaper than going above the garage, assuming that it's a standard size garage and we're looking at about 400 square feet to go up. I think that you would ballpark around $150,000 for that, all in. And again, that you should take that as a grain of salt because every property is going to be different and there may be constraints for a property that would make a project more expensive. For example, the year that the garage was constructed or how good of shape that the garage is in. So I think going up is always a question I get a lot of interest in, and sometimes it becomes a little bit cost prohibitive, but it is a great way to maintain the garage and add extra square footage. So yeah, I would say if you're thinking about that, it's certainly feasible. Another big benefit of San Diego is that, and this is one place where they've really gone above and beyond where other jurisdictions have, is if your garage is on your property line, you can convert the garage without having to conform to setback requirements, which is awesome. But if you're building up, in most jurisdictions, you then do have to conform to the setbacks on the second story, which seems ridiculous, right? That's not the case. So if you're a garage in San Diego, you can actually, if your garage is on the property line, you can actually build your second story on the property line as well. So that's another big advantage of building above a garage in San Diego versus other jurisdictions where you have to maintain a 5-foot fence.
So that's a good opportunity for anyone that really has some very serious interest to attend the event, because you're going to have access to Caitlin, myself, architects, contractors, to really get some of these questions answered for you in a more specific way, and then help you take your next steps.
And looks like Dave is asking, when adding above a garage, do you have to stay within the envelope of the existing frame, or can you expand beyond? So Dave, I think it would be dependent on the house and the property. My understanding would be that if you were going to expand, you would be needing to expand like inward away from a property line, as opposed to continuing along the property line. Someone else is asking, how does adding an ADU change the real estate taxes of the initial house? So the city is going to do what's called a blended assessment. So for those of you who have owned your house for a very long time and you would be worried about triggering a reassessment of the value of the house because you're happy with your Prop 13 increases, you don't have to worry. If you bought your house in the 1980s, it will still retain the value that it was, that it's been given, but then the city will basically just add the value of the new construction. So if you and that's the same if you were to do an addition, for example, or add a pool or something like that too. Does anyone else have any other questions? Oh, someone's asking for the link to the Eventbrite, and here is the event. So yeah, if you're interested at all, or you have clients that are interested at all, this is going to give you such a wealth of information, so that you can be better for outreach and have a lot of knowledge around this. But it's also, if you're interested in doing something, like I would so recommend, it's everyone you need is going to be in one spot. And I only work with people that I have vetted and I've personally seen their projects, talked to their clients, spent a lot of time with them, and know that they're experts in the space, because that's the big thing, is that this market is so new and the regulations change so quickly that it's really important to work with someone that knows what they're doing and has kind of made this their specialty.
We're going to start running out of time here, so let's defer any further questions. Caitlin and myself can stay online, and again, we'll be available, respond to any the email survey, so we can certainly follow up. And again, the link for the Eventbrite will be on there, a copy of the webinar. So I just wanted to follow up. We talked about a marketing kit here, and again, this is really for maybe the lenders and the realtor community out there that I think sometimes have sort of a challenge staying in contact with their past clients, how to sort of start introducing this to prospective clients. So we're going to have some collateral that's available to you. We also have some email marketing that as the constant contact solution provider, we've really sort of put all of the content together for you to give you a marketing campaign to initially engage with your past clients and future clients that'll be available. So you can see here that, we will be immediately able to empower you to start having these kinds of discussions with your prospects. And then just as importantly, being able to market to your past clients and future clients with some collateral through email marketing. One of the things that, I've always been excited about email marketing when we use a tool like Constant Contact. It allows you to send some communications out there, but it also really helps you drill down and really trying to see who is actually reading your emails and who's trying to connect and who's really showing an interest in the email communications you send out there. I hear from realtors all the time, they are really tasked to really try to create more touch points, and we'll be able to do that. We'll be able to provide a whole drip email campaign to really empower you to get back in contact with your customers, and again, help to identify once these people sort of, when you can see these people going into your emails and opening up and actually reading them, that it'll actually give you a database of who's actually showing an interest. That really sort of sets up a warm phone call for you to help the client answer any questions. And I think sort of the underlying strategies, if you're a realtor working with your past clients, this will really help you re-engage with your past clients and really help to see if there's any opportunities for any kinds of real estate needs out there in the marketplace. So again, email marketing, we're trying to simplify this for you. If you can get your clients in, if you get your clients into a database, to a spreadsheet, that's about as far as you need to take it. We can sort of take it there with our managed services and our content that'll be free. So, you know, we're really trying to make this attractive and help you engage with your current customers. In addition to that, with programs like Constant Contact, you'll be able to provide social media links into Facebook and LinkedIn. So this, again, this will certainly help propel your branding, create those kinds of touch points that we're all striving to create here in the marketplace. So that really sort of wraps up our marketing kit. Caitlin also said she has some content that she's going to provide to you. So we'll be following that up with an email. Looks like we are really wrapping up here. I see some questions coming in. But again, I wanted to thank you all for your participation. And Caitlin, are there some more questions that came up?
Yeah, someone asked where you can see all the ADU requirements for each jurisdiction. So really happy that you asked that question, because we just, at Maxable Space, we just launched our ADU regulations portal. And so I have mapped out what all of the regulations are for every jurisdiction in San Diego County. So from Carlsbad to Vista, you can see what the regulations are, and I just put a link to that, but you can also find it at maximalspace.com.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you all for hanging in there with us. We had great participation. People really hung in there through most of the presentation, so I'm glad this was very well received. Please reach out to us and let us know, let us help answer any questions you have about accessory dwelling units, renovation loans. We appreciate your participation. We look forward to working with you. Please fill out the survey, give us some feedback so we can improve the next one. Again, this participation was about twice as big as it was what we did back in September. So this is really telling me that we have really strong interest there, and we're here to support you. Caitlin, thanks again for all of the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. And again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out, or, you know, we'd love to see you at the event in February.
Okay, thank you all. We're going to sign off. Take care. Talk to you soon.